Let's go.
We had a little bit of a technical problem, but we are getting ready to go live. We're live, are we? Oh, we are. Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Hayward City Council. And I'm just going to go ahead and read the COVID-19 notice to start this meeting. Consistent with the State of California Executive Order number 29-20 dated March 17th, 2020, and Alameda County Health Officer Order number 20-10 dated April 29th, 2020, the City Council will be participating in public meetings via phone video conferencing. And this meeting is taking place on Zoom. It can also be watched on Comcast TV channel 15, live streamed from the city's website on your computer at hayward.legistar and or watched on YouTube. And public comments can be made on this meeting, and you will see the numbers that our city clerk has put up there in addition to the Zoom link. You see the numbers to call. Now, if you are watching the meeting on Zoom and you want to make a public comment, you can use the raise hand feature. But if you are not on Zoom or for some other reason want to dial in, that number that is being shown is actually that's watching. That's not for calling. I'm going to ask the city clerk to explain the calling procedures later when we get to public comment. However, for now, welcome to this meeting of the Hayward City Council. And I'm calling this meeting to order, and I am going to this evening ask Council Member Lamnen to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And you can see that I do have a flag behind me. So Council Member Lamnen, will you please do that?
Certainly. Thank you for asking. Please rise and as they say, body or spirit, and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Halliday, council members, and all attendees. Councilmember Lamnen.
Yes.
Councilmember Marquez.
Present.
Councilmember Mendel.
Here.
Councilmember Salinas.
I am here, and I just wanted to make sure that the brick wall behind me is a background. I am here in Hayward. I'm at home, so I just wanted to make sure
I've seen that one.
that I'm here.
Thank you. Councilmember Wahab.
Here.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Here.
Mayor Halliday.
Here.
Yes, thank you. All 7 members present.
Thank you. Now I'll ask our city attorney to give the announcement on the closed session, which we held just prior to this meeting on items 1 and 2, and I will give the report on item 3. Mr. Lawson, are you here?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Madam Mayor?
Mr. Lawson, would you please give the closed session announcement on items 1 and 2 from the closed session prior to this meeting? Mr. Lawson? We're not.
Mayor Halliday, perhaps we could come back to our city attorney. I see that he is here and he's not muted, but I don't think he is responding.
All right. Well, I'll say for now that we did meet in closed session on 3 items and took no reportable action on any of them, I believe. But if he can come back on, if he has anything to add to that, I will allow him to do that. All right, with that, we're now going to move into public comments on items that are otherwise not on our agenda. Madam City Clerk, do we have anyone who wishes to make a public comment this evening?
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make an announcement and share information on the screen prior to verifying that we have speakers this evening, if I may. If you wish to speak and you are using the Zoom application, please click the raise hand function and your name will be called. If you're dialing in, press *9.
I think we've lost the city clerk now. Can people hear me at the moment?
Yes, we can hear you, Mayor.
All right.
Do you want me to continue reading or wait till she comes back on?
Sure, go ahead. This
Okay.
is, it's on the screen what she wants.
So, and if you're listening by phone and you want to make a public comment, you could press *9 on your phone, and that will identify that you've raised your hand. We will unmute your microphone when it's your turn to provide public comment, and you should hear a note that says you're unmuted, and you'll have an opportunity to provide your comment. Once your public comment has ended, you'll be muted again, and we will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. So if you hear that, please know that you are going to be unmuted to make a public comment. So I don't see the city clerk has not rejoined us yet.
And we are dependent on her to know if there are public.
I can also do that, Mayor, if necessary. So I can identify public commenters and bring them in to make comments. So
Are there any that you see?
it looks like there is one public comment, one member of the public who's raised their hand.
And you can bring that
Yep,
person.
I will go ahead and do that. So I will, and again, this is simply for items that are not otherwise on the agenda. If you have a comment for an item that is on the agenda tonight, please wait until later in the agenda when that item is called. So I'm going to call in Serene Decora, and go ahead and unmute yourself. You should be able to talk now.
Hello, Council, Madam Mayor, and attendees. My name is Serene Decora, and I wanted to officially introduce myself through public comment tonight. I recently sent each of you a proposal, both electronically and in hard copy, for my company, Extreme Sports Productions, to invest into the city of Hayward. So I just want to thank you for all of those who have already had a chance to respond. The proposal includes a concept for a new family entertainment center. We see the facility offering outdoor recreation that would serve the whole community, ages 5 and up, with activities such as zip lining, ropes courses, rock climbing, low impact and standard paintball games, outdoor laser tag, bazooka ball, which is like Nerf ball, and even miniature golf. I simply wanted to say I hope you enjoyed the proposal, and I wanted to let you know that I am available for any questions that you may have. And we look forward to discussing this opportunity with the city and working together to bring a COVID-safe recreation options to this community. So I hope you have a great rest of your meeting, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I know I did, and probably others passed this on to our city staff. And I do believe that someone from our economic development department will be reaching out to you if they haven't already. So thank you for bringing that to us. Okay. And not seeing anyone else.
I think, yeah, that was all the public comments that we have on items not on the agenda this evening.
Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to our action items, and the first among those are items 1 through 6, which are our consent calendar. We are pulling item number 6. Councilmember Lamnon has asked that be held. Are there any other council members who wish to pull items from the consent calendar? Sorry. Councilmember Mendel?
Thank you, Mayor. If it's appropriate, I'll move items 1 through 5.
A second.
Well, just okay. Thank you. So that was a motion by Councilmember Mendel, seconded by Councilmember Zermano.
I believe it was Councilmember Wahab that seconded it.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry. Okay. However, I had a conversation earlier with the city clerk, who I think has not yet rejoined us, about I wanted to make sure that there were no members of the public who wanted to pull a consent item. As I said, 6 is being pulled. I don't see any hands raised
there's no
from
hands
the
raised.
attendees. So we'll go on then with that motion. So a motion by Councilmember Mendel, seconded by Councilmember Wahab. Madam.
Yeah, and our deputy city clerk, Mary Monlux, is going to call the roll call vote for city clerk.
Okay, Ms. Monlux.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. Councilmember Lamnon?
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez?
Yes.
Councilmember Mendel?
Yes.
Councilmember Salinas?
Yes.
Councilmember Wahab?
Yes.
Councilmember Zarmeno?
Yes.
And Mayor Halliday?
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Those items are passed unanimously. Item number 6, Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll just say this is a motion to renew debate on a proposed development of a fuel facility with related site improvements at the Costco Business Center on Hathaway. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I pulled this because I am not supportive of renewing the debate. I appreciate the spirit in which it was introduced. But as I said at the time, not interested in seeing this proposal move forward, which is why I voted no on it. And so, so there you go.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Councilmember Mendel.
Thank you, Mayor. So a question for Councilmember Wahab, who asked for this to be renewed. I know there was a motion that night. I was not able to be at that meeting. There was a motion that night to delay the item until September 15th, when the entire council could be there. And as I understand it, that motion failed, and I know you had voted against it. And I'm just curious. You're basically asking for, as I understand it, exactly that. And so I'm wondering if something has changed in the interim that you can share that might help us make this decision.
I'm not exactly sure I can share it. I did have a follow-up conversation with our city manager in regards to the impact in the city and some items there. So I know it technically cannot be shared publicly.
Oh, okay. All right. No, that's fair. If it is reconsidered, we can discuss it when it comes back then. All right, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Salinas.
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge Councilmember Lamnon for pulling this. I too voted no on this item when it came to us earlier, and the reason why I voted no for it, quite frankly, was a couple of things. One was there was already an overwhelming amount of gas stations on A Street. And I think this one will be, number 6, number 5 or number 6, all within a very short span of length of distance of one another. The other one is the traffic, the Hathaway A Street traffic. I have personally have had conversations with particularly one business that is not a gas station, who is in close proximity to that intersection. And that intersection is already, has reached its capacity in terms of traffic. And I think if I go back and listen to and refer to the Planning Commission, I think the Planning Commission also wrangled with the same issue. The other reason why I was against this was, we have a climate action plan that we have been working aggressively towards, and it just makes really no sense that on one side of A Street, we are here at City Hall generating a robust climate action plan with very achievable goals. And in fact, we're ahead of our timeline in achieving many of those goals. But then on the other side of A Street, we're approving gas stations. And so I think, and lastly, and I'll just, say this for the record, it isn't what the neighborhood wanted. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's what the neighborhood wants. And so I've had conversations with folks on the Santa Clara and Hathaway, and so, it was, so that's why I was supporting saying my opposition to this. And so I will be voting no on this issue. Thank you.
Now, again, this is not to approve or not approve this project. It is just simply, do we want to rehear it? We heard it the first time with one council member gone. So, Council Member Zermeño?
Yes, I thank my two colleagues for expressing their sentiments on this, but I'd rather we hear or we discuss this when we vote, if we are to vote yes on agendanize it again. I'd rather wait for those arguments later. So can we just move on and vote?
After we hear from Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I also don't want to get into a discussion. This is just to, I don't want to bring it forward. I just have to state that I am disappointed. When we were asked about this last week, I specifically had asked staff if they could include some information with regard to the Sustainability Committee going to be at a future date addressing the idea of a moratorium on gas stations. So I double checked the staff report. I thought maybe I just missed it, but I double checked right now. I don't see any mention of that. So I just want to make sure when this comes back to us that we'll be able to present to the public where we're at in the process with that discussion. I just want to make sure that piece doesn't get missed from this discussion. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I don't see any other requests to speak from council. Madam City Clerk, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? I don't see. Yes, actually, there may be one there. Are you?
Yes.
You're with us again. Welcome.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. My apologies for that. We do have one individual wishing to speak by the name of John Algingson, and I'm going to ask him to please go ahead and unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Halliday and council members. Good evening. My name is John Ellingson, and I am the Costco Development Manager for the Hayward Business Center gas station project. Just wanted to take a brief opportunity here to thank you for your consideration and offer a few comments for your consideration as you take this item this evening. We greatly appreciate the opportunity that this motion to renew the project provides for our project. And we welcome this step for a number of reasons. First, it remedies what was our inability to request a continuance at the first hearing. It allows continued deliberation by the full council that was not able to participate at the last hearing. And it's a logical conclusion or continuation of the discussion to allow the council to reach a definitive decision on a motion. This is a very important project to us. It allows us to provide a high quality product at a fair price to our members, particularly our local business members, in direct response to their demand for this product. As such, the gas station project represents a very significant investment and our ongoing support and commitment to the city of Hayward. This project provides a number of benefits to make sure are highlighted for you. It's the expansion of your tax base. It's an opportunity to add electric vehicle charging stations to our site. a significant amount of new landscape, more trees than exist on the property today, and the replacement of lot lights throughout the site with LEDs, just to name a few of the benefits. We look forward to bringing the project back to the full council to continue our discussion on the merits of the project. And again, thank you very much for your thoughtful consideration of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other requests to speak on this item, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor. I have Mike Shafik, and I'm going to go ahead and allow to speak. And please go ahead. Go ahead. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Start from again. Hi, Mayor Halliday and the council member. My name is Mike Shafi. And the reason for my call is I always, I live in Hayward actually first in last 22 years. And I raise my family here and I go to Costco almost like 4 or 5 times a week because I have business here in Hayward also. And I like to do, like when I shop, to the gas, better when I go to the one in San Leandro. So I believe will be benefit for everyone if we have the gas station in Hayward. It will be a lot easy for everyone to shop and to do gas at the same time. I think that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Halliday, that was the last speaker wishing to speak.
All right, so I will go ahead and close public comment on this item and ask for a motion. Councilmember Wahab?
I move the item. And I also would like to see the request for the study as requested earlier from last week as well.
Second.
Okay, so a motion to approve the item and renew the debate at a future meeting on this item was made by Councilmember Wahab, seconded by Councilmember Zermino. I will say regarding the discussion, I think that would not really have been relevant to this particular item, just whether we're going to renew the discussion. It will be relevant when we have the discussion, when this item comes back to us on the agenda, though. So I think the city manager has probably taken note to be sure and include that. Mr. Brick, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the Sustainability Committee did schedule a meeting in November to discuss the moratorium, and that is in the staff report on page 1. It's in a footnote. So I'm sorry if I didn't make it clear in the text of the actual report.
Okay, I just saw it myself. All right, read those footnotes. Okay, with that, let's see. I don't see any other requests to speak from council. So we have the motion by Councilmember Wahab to move this item forward, seconded by Councilmember Zermano. Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Lamnin.
No.
Councilmember Marquez.
Yes, and thank you, Attorney Brick, for pointing that footnote out.
Thank you. Councilmember Mendel.
Because I missed the last meeting, I feel obligated to vote yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Salinas.
No.
Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Zermano.
Yes.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes.
Thank
the
you.
motion passes with, I believe, 5 aye votes and 2 no votes.
Correct.
Okay. We'll be seeing that in the future. All right. Now we're going to move on.
Mayor Halliday, do we want to go back and do the closed session report out? I think the city attorney.
Is Mr. Lawson here, or is Mr. Brick going to do it?
Either they can do it, or Mr. Lawson has texted me to.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
See if we can connect. If not, I can do it for him.
Well, I actually did it, unless he has something to.
No, there's nothing else to report out. So.
I reported that we considered the 3 items and did not have any reportable action on any of them. So unless you have to add, Mr. Lawson.
I don't think he's been able to somehow. He says nothing. He says he has nothing to add.
Yeah, I can confirm that he has nothing to add and that he's having technical difficulties.
Sorry.
And it was so smooth last week when we first did it on Zoom, and somehow this week we are having these problems. So
City Manager, also your voice comes in very faintly. Would you be able to just lean into the mic or have the mic? I just want to state that because I could barely hear you.
Sure, I will. I'm not sure where the microphone is on my desktop computer. I will try to figure that out and lean into it without getting my face too close to the screen.
Use your outside voice. Okay, so we're going to move on to item number 7 now, and that is regarding a temporary limit on third-party food delivery fees, adoption of an emergency ordinance establishing a temporary limit of 15% on fees of food delivery services providers to support restaurants in Hayward during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we will hear, I believe, from Deputy City Manager Ott on this. Correct?
No, Mayor. This is Paul, Economic Development Manager. I'll be conducting the presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Let me share my screen to get the presentation. I need host authority.
Could you please try now?
Sure. There we go.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Happy to hear Paul Nguyen, Economic Development Manager here for the record. Happy to be here tonight to recommend adoption of an emergency ordinance to temporarily cap fees charged by third-party food delivery services to Hayward restaurants at 15% during the COVID-19 pandemic. The purpose of this emergency ordinance would be to ease economic burden and support business continuity of Hayward restaurants, as well as the employees they employ, as they are severely impacted by ongoing shelter-in-place order requirements. There you go. A little background on how we got here tonight. In March, the state of California and the Hayward City Council both declared a statewide and local emergency, which then was followed by shelter-in-place orders issued by the Alameda County Public Health Department on March 16th, followed by which prohibited indoor dining at all restaurant and food establishments and allowed only for takeout and delivery. The state of California followed suit on March 20th, which severely disrupted normal business operation and revenue generation opportunities for restaurants. The order was relaxed this summer on July 15th, following the Alameda County's revised shelter-in-place order following their variance attestation. But that order, which is still in effect today, only allows for the resumption of outdoor dining opportunities for restaurants. So what are third-party food delivery companies? Well, these companies are third-party private companies that provide online ordering, marketing, and delivery services to restaurants, whether you order online or through their mobile app on your phone. On the right here are logos of some of the most predominant ones: DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. These three companies are attributed to about 65% of total online or third-party orders in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this space, or this market space, has grown tremendously over the past year. Nationwide data shows that sales through these platforms have increased 150% year over year. With that tremendous growth in this market space, a number of companies have been gone out of business and others have been purchased. So there's a significant amount of industry consolidation. For example, DoorDash acquired Caviar, which was an up-and-coming startup in this space. And then most recently this year, Uber Eats launched a bid to acquire Grubhub. So this continued industry consolidation will leave restaurants with less or limited ability to negotiate the service contracts with these providers, which I'll get into in the next slide. So how it works is that restaurants negotiate and enter into service contracts with these third-party service providers. These contracts include a fee schedule. The fees range between 30 to 35% of the total order value. For example, if you were to place a $100 order through a third-party service for food, the restaurant itself would pay 30% of the value of that order in a commission to the third-party company. So on a $100 food order, $30 of that order would go right to the third-party provider. Now, fees vary somewhat based on the contract terms that are negotiated between the third party and the business, and range on a number of factors such as how the order is originated. There are different fees for orders that originate from your phone, your mobile app, versus your own private restaurant website or through a third-party website. So there's a little nuance in it, but in general, 30 to 35% is the fee, commission fee. In our staff outreach to these third-party companies, they've told us that they're using these fees to pay and provide commercial driver's insurance for the delivery drivers, pay their wages, develop marketing materials for the restaurants, develop and maintain those websites that I talked about, and also mobile app platforms. Now, throughout the COVID pandemic, businesses, I've said a number of different presentations that businesses are operating on the razor's edge, and this is no different for our restaurant community, who have reached out to these companies as a lifeline, as basically the majority of their business revenue, which is indoor dining, evaporated overnight with the issuance of the March shelter-in-place orders. A review of our business license database shows that there are about 340 restaurant-related food establishments in Hayward, and about half of those are using one or more of these third-party delivery services. In the preparation of the proposed ordinance, we conduct an extensive outreach via interviews with restaurant operators, and we've solicited public comment from all Hayward businesses through our business license database. We've reached out in partnership to the membership of the Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Hayward Improvement Area, and Downtown Merchants Groups. And this research has shown that some of these businesses rely on these third-party companies for as much as 40% of their business or revenue during COVID times. In some cases, a number of restaurants have indicated that the fees charged by these third-party providers have resulted in them not recouping enough net revenue to cover costs. That is, they're losing money on every order. That's resulted in some considering closing permanently as the avalanche of impacts from COVID, diminished revenue, rent obligations, daily wage obligations, all those obligations are continuing to stack up. And restaurants, in some cases, are in a position to make a hard decision whether they're going to close shop permanently. The ordinance before you tonight isn't new. A number of cities across the country, like New York, Portland, and Seattle, have all adopted different ordinances to tackle the fee cap issue. This is no different in the Bay Area region. The chart before you here shows that 5 cities in our county that have adopted a fee cap over the summer. As you can see, primarily our neighboring cities have adopted a 15% fee cap on fees, with some nuances. In the Berkeley example, in row 1, they established a 15% cap on fees, and plus an additional 5% in other fees. And those other fees could be additional service fees, such in the marketing or some special add-on service, or credit card processing fees, which range between 3 and 4%, depending on the credit card that is used and the processor, the financial institution that's processing the transaction. But in all, the majority of communities in the Bay Area, or in Alameda County at least, have adopted a 15% cap. The grace period has ranged among different cities here, most between 7 and 30 days. And all of them have some sort of termination clause associated with the state of local emergency. Most of them having a termination clause tied to cancellation or termination of the local state of emergency, while one other has tied it to the resumption of indoor dining activities. So before you tonight for consideration is a proposed ordinance that I'll summarize briefly in the slide here. First and foremost, we're proposing to limit fees charged by these third-party services to 15% per order as a flat rate. That includes any other percentage fee they will charge. Our ordinance proposes a grace period of October 6th, which is about 14 days from the adoption of the ordinance. We establish a process where restaurants must submit in writing to the third-party service provider requesting a refund, and those requests must be submitted within 7 days of the actual order the restaurant receives. And we also are requiring restaurants in kind to respond and refund any fees in excess of the 15% within 7 calendar days of the written request. Lastly, our ordinance includes a enabling feature allowing restaurants to take civil action to seek damages and in relief if the service providers refuse to provide the requested refund. In terms of enforcement and termination, in accordance with our city charter, there's a fee schedule set for any violation of our municipal code. And per the fiscal year 21 master fee schedule, violations for the first violation is $100, $200 for the second, and $500 for the third and subsequent violations. If adopted tonight as an emergency ordinance, the ordinance would be effective immediately, and it would terminate 90 days after the city council rescinds the local declared emergency. In your deliberation for the ordinance tonight, there are a couple other issues you might want to consider. Staff reached out to a number of the delivery service providers to understand their perspective and to see what kind of impacts these kind of ordinances had on them and the services they provide. And they raised 3 issues that I want to quickly summarize here and that are detailed in the staff report. But in communities, first, they've said that fee caps reduce the level of marketing services they provide to restaurants, and this could be the case for Hayward. That's their primary service. They push ads for contracted restaurants on their platforms, push promotions, develop websites and things like that. And they said in communities that have established fee caps, they've reduced that level of effort. They still market them, they still abide by their contracts, but they don't do it as aggressively, which translates into reduced sales. One company indicated that restaurants in communities that adopted fee caps showed a 20% reduction in sales. 2, reduced driver tips. And this is related to number 1. Reduced sales translates into reduced transactions and delivery opportunities for drivers. With fewer delivery opportunities, the drivers make less tips. And third, and this is kind of like their nuclear option or the most extreme option, they've said that, in communities that adopt fee caps, they may consider discontinuing service entirely to that community. This was the case in San Francisco over the summer when the city of San Francisco adopted a 15% cap, and a number of the third-party providers decided to halt all service to Treasure Island. And after some public outcry and pressure, the service was restored, but the companies wanted to make the point that they are a business, they do have costs, and hampering their ability to enter into contracts and levy fees to recoup those costs is damaging to their business model. Overall, staff believes that these risks are really mitigated and unlikely, given some of the features of our ordinance, primarily the temporary duration of the fee cap. In our conversations with the 3 of the major service providers, they've all said informally that as long as it's tied to COVID and it's temporary, and it is, they won't likely contest or take any negative options to hamper reduce marketing or discontinuing service to our community. Our ordinance includes a grace period and also a right to action model that empowers the restaurants as well. So those features really kind of mitigate the 3 issues I raised, but I thought it was important to put those before you. So tonight, staff is recommending the adoption of an emergency ordinance that establishes a 15% limit on fees by third-party delivery service providers to Hayward restaurants during the COVID pandemic. As an emergency ordinance, we would need 5 affirmative votes tonight. That would make the ordinance effective immediately. If we only receive 4, it would be adopted at the next council meeting and made effective 30 days later. If approved tonight, economic development staff will send a notification to all Hayward restaurants and business associations to get the word out about the ordinance and the new set of rights and fee cap limits afforded to restaurants. And we'll also send a notification to third-party service providers so they can have time to comply and adjust their fee collection systems. With that, concludes staff's presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I see that Councilmember Mendel has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, three hopefully quick ones. If you could put up the Taco Fix example that you had in your presentation, Paul, that'd be good. And while you're doing that, I'm sure it's in here, but I missed it when I was reading this the first time. So what is the proposed termination clause for the Hayward emergency ordinance? What would be the trigger to end?
Yeah, it would be 90 days following the termination, City Council's termination of the local declared state of emergency.
Okay, that's clear. Good. And so, I'm looking at this, and this has kind of bugged me for a little bit. So maybe you can, maybe there's a nuance here that I'm not understanding. So if I place that order, let's say we'll do Tacos Europa because that's my favorite taco place, Mexican restaurant. No offense to the others. It's right near my home. So if I place that order at Tacos Europa and I drive there to pick it up, I'm going to pay $44.28, and Tacos Europa will receive all $44.28.
That's correct.
But if I order through Grubhub or one of these other delivery services, then I'm going to pay $44.28, but the restaurant's going to receive $30 because the fee structure is such that it reduces the amount of the check effectively for the restaurant. So it seems like a more logical structure would be that rather than it seems like if they wanted to charge a high fee, then it should be additive to the check and not a penalty to the restaurateur, right? And so, like, if I'm willing to drive there, I should be paying less than the person who is paying someone else to drive there, pick it up, and bring it to them, right? That would seem more logical. And then in that case, it'd be the restaurants wouldn't be getting stiffed part of the check. And the people who want that or need that delivery service would end up paying a little bit more for it. So why have the vendors given you any sense as to why that is not their model and why they haven't switched to that to eliminate this concern of forcing the restaurateurs to foot the bill for the delivery?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, the best way to support Hayward restaurants is to pick up your phone and order directly and pick up directly from the restaurant, so they get the full freight of your bill. All that money stays in Hayward and circulates in Hayward. To answer your question, why do Hayward restaurants utilize these services given the amount of fees they pay? The number one answer is they do not. Hayward restaurants and restaurants across the country who are small, or even the large ones, they don't have the infrastructure to establish that online presence, that mobile ordering platform, that delivery element, right? So your Tacos Japan, your small business, they might not have the wherewithal and infrastructure and technical know-how to establish that delivery, direct order taking and delivery model. So they see this as a quick fix and also a revenue generator, because the number one service, the service providers would argue that what they provide is they drive traffic to your restaurant. So, millions of people have apps on their phone, are receiving notifications, are getting, advertising notices, all these sorts of things. And so that is the value that these companies add. And restaurants.
I get, pardon the interruption, Paul. I mean, I get why restaurants would want to sign up for the service and participate in it. But I was asking more about the billing structure. Why doesn't Grubhub, why have you asked them why they don't just add
the fee,
that $13 fee to the check, and the person who wants it delivered pays $57?
Right. What they've said is in the instant. So that's how it's kind of started. You add, there's different kind of models. So that some third parties, you subscribe like Amazon Prime, or you have a membership, like a $20 membership, and then you don't pay any fees. That's kind of one model. The other model is that delivery fee, right? So why doesn't a restaurant just pay the your $50 ticket, and then the restaurant adds a $7.99 delivery fee, right?
There you go.
That's your question. Why don't they do that? Research has found that in the instances where there's an add-on overt fee for delivery, when consumers see that, they don't want it. They don't order it. They just want to pick up their phone and order $50 worth of food and not see any added fees. Because when they do see that line item, they're less likely to order.
Us consumers, we want something for free. We don't want to have to go pick it up. Exactly. We want someone else to do it for us, and we don't want to pay more.
So the third parties
restaurants,
onus on the restaurants to adjust their pricing to account for that commission, right?
Okay, thank you. I realize that question was a little far afield, but I appreciate you indulging me, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I'm done, Mayor.
Mayor, you're still muted.
Okay. Could you stop sharing your screen?
Sorry.
I'm not, yeah. Okay. Now, Councilmember Marquez. No, we can't. You're muted.
You're also muted.
Sorry about that. I thought I had unmuted before I started speaking. Thank you for the report. It was extremely thorough. I really appreciate staff responding to this so quickly. I know there's been a lot going on and a lot added. So thank you for the outreach efforts. You mentioned if this is passed, and of course we need 5 votes for it to be an emergency ordinance and adopted immediately. But how will we communicate updated information to Hayward businesses? How would that information be sent to them? Paul, we can't hear you. There you go.
Thank you, council members. So we'll do it in a number of different ways. First and foremost, ED staff will draft a notice, and we will blast it out through our business license database. So everybody in the food space will have this information in their inbox. We'll also reach out through the chamber and the various business associations to get the word out to their memberships. And we'll also put this information on the city's webpage.
Okay. And have we done a thorough analysis, and do we know for certain that we have an email address for everyone that has a business license with the city of Hayward? Is that a mandated field they have to fill out in the form?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, good. And in your report, can you just explain it a little bit? This goes beyond restaurants, correct? So can you just kind of give us a snapshot of what other eateries type businesses can take advantage of this?
Sure. Essentially, any food industry, mostly restaurants, cafes, bakeries, Bon Mage on B, any of those kind of people, T4, those kind of tea shops. Anyone who does prepared foods and subscribe to one of these third-party services, it would apply. They would be protected.
Okay, so it would obviously apply to, you've already mentioned one, but we've kind of had this uptake in new dessert places. So as long as they have this type of platform, they would be able to benefit from this as well. It's not exclusive to restaurants.
Correct.
Okay. And you already answered my question with regard to when does this lapse? So this is just with respect to COVID. And I believe you said 90 days after we end our declared emergency in Hayward, correct? Not on the county?
That's correct.
Obviously, we're going to align with county and state. But, and I think in the staff report, can you just kind of elaborate why you selected 90 days and not just immediately?
90 days gives restaurants enough time to get back open. Just because the county determines that you can operate indoors doesn't mean customers are going to start flooding back in. There's a lot of different elements in terms of businesses having sufficient time to adapt to the new state and county safe operating requirements. And so staff felt that 90 days was an appropriate amount of time to give the business opportunity to get their house in order to take in customers, but still be protected during that time as they're still adapting to reopening.
Okay. And I know we received a couple emails today, but other than what's come in today, has staff received any other strong objections, concerns, or any other input from local businesses?
No. In total, we received 4 emails and calls from Hayward businesses, all for the ordinance.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Zarmeño.
Thank you, Mayor. Paul, thank you for a good report. Do you see this, Paul, as a way for us to help part of our businesses here in Hayward?
Absolutely. This adopting the ordinance tonight will provide immediate relief. As it's in the presentation, some of these businesses are depend on these third-party services for as much as 40% of their revenue. So if you're 40% and you're giving 30% of it back, they're only really netting 10. So this will provide immediate relief.
Okay, and we see an end once COVID leaves, right? Once COVID leaves, we will have a 90-day period for this to end, correct?
Correct.
Right, okay. I have only received one email in favor of this, so I'm wondering why other restaurants have not contacted. Do we know why other business owners have not written me, or I don't know if anybody else, any one of my other colleagues, but I've only received one that they favor this, and thank you for voting on it. Any idea why? Just they take it for granted that we're going to vote on it?
That could be it. It could be that they, there are any number of reasons. It would be a conjecture at this point, but we did do extensive outreach to all.
Okay, fine. I thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Lamnin.
Thank you. Thank you for the work on this. Would this also apply to Instacart?
No, it wouldn't apply to Instacart because their model is different. They don't charge a percentage fee. They charge those. They have like a separate delivery fee, and in some cases, for example, for like Costco, Instacart through Costco, there's no delivery fee, but the Costco automatically adjusts their prices. So their in-warehouse prices are different than their Instacart prices, and there's a little note that says you're paying more for the item. So that's how that fee structure works. It's not like a flat fee, a percentage fee. It's different and negotiated by item. It's a little more complicated. And
So
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
And a number of the grocery stores like Safeway, they all have free delivery if you reach like a $35 threshold. And a number of the grocery stores in the city have adopted like a order online and drive-up pickup, curbside pickup kind of model.
Right. And I know I'm using Instacart I know there's a couple of them out there, but it sounds like the model is different and therefore the impact is different. Am I understanding that right? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you, Mayor. I know when I wrote third-party fees, I was thinking including Instacart, regardless of their business model. And the reason why is primarily because seniors and those that are high at risk are not trying to leave their homes. And, obviously COVID has impacted their lives. So my question is, can this be expanded to them, considering the fact that groceries and so many other things, it's impacting seniors' lives and many of them are at risk, regardless of the business model?
It could. Maybe I'll ask the city attorney to weigh in, but it could, but it would have to be in a different vehicle because that model is so different and varies from provider to provider. I mean, it would just be Instacart. There's like 2 grocery delivery providers, and staff elected not to include that in this because of the fact that those groceries haven't really talked about the impact to their business. I mean, grocery stores are booming at the moment, and we haven't heard much feedback from the committee on that element. 2 and 3, as I kind of explained, the fee structure is very different, so we would have to kind of develop a whole separate vehicle to look at that. And in our research, we haven't found any other model in the country that's really talked about that element.
Yeah, and that is of interest to me. One of the other questions I do have is that you stated that in San Francisco, one of the third-party organizations stopped doing business, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And how long was that for?
That was for less than 30 days, and the outcry was really fierce. And then, so, yeah.
Okay. And in regards to, you mentioned driver tips, which is an option that the end user can select, anything from $1 to, hey, I'm going to tip this person $50, right? That has been in the press significantly in regards to some of these providers have actually not provided the tip. So how much of that tip goes directly to the driver?
That in staff's outreach to the third-party providers, that was one of the first questions, like what's the deal with the tips and that, and all of the three that we outreached all have adapted their model to prohibit any of the tips being taken out of their wages. So all the tips go to the drivers.
Okay. And then with this in place, do you believe that Hayward restaurants, and I hope businesses, I hope that we can expand this, would gain a larger customer base when a customer, because I do believe that outreach should be to the customer as well, is able to understand that they will not be charged heavily for ordering McDonald's, that they would be more inclined to utilize a third-party application in order to kind of get some of the services or the foods that they want. What is your...
So the question is, if we adopt this tonight, do I think it'll drive more businesses to Hayward restaurants?
Yes.
Yes and no. Hard for me to say. I would probably say no, based on the way the fees are levied. So when a consumer orders it on their mobile app, they're not seeing the delivery fees. So that's the way the third-party companies want it. They want it all hidden because, as I described to Councilmember Mendel, once you see the fees, you're less likely to order. And so even under this ordinance, the end consumer won't see a fee reduction to the restaurants. All that fee is done on the back end between the service provider and the restaurant.
However, when you order from DoorDash, for example, there is, you order whatever it is, right? Your cheeseburger, right? Mm-hmm. And it says, let's say it's $5, right? Then you click continue because you add it to the cart, you click continue, and that $5 jumps to, let's say, $10, $14, right? And instead of the $14, let's say just jump to about $8 instead. And then you add the driver's tip. So technically the end user still sees that there is some type of charge on top of whatever they actually purchased, right? Just based on the 2 pages that you click next and you move on. So one of the things that I would like to ask is if we can also focus more on the consumer, just saying, hey, it's cheaper, it's more to drive people in that direction. Is that possible?
What I would recommend is taking the third-party people out entirely, because at anytime you use a third party, the restaurant will pay a fee, whether it be the 35% exist or the 15% of the cap. The best option to support Hayward businesses is to encourage people to call and shop direct from the restaurant. That would be my preference. That would be my recommendation.
True. However, I'm asking more in the sense, can the city promote the fact that we have a reduced fee, sure, get more people to utilize these services, especially those who are immobile or high at risk, in order to sustain the business, but then also let the consumer know? Can we do that?
Yes, we could. If it's approved tonight, ED staff can work with the PIO to get this information out to the general public. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other council members have questions here? I wanted you to explain a little bit about the right to the private action model. What you're talking is that the grace period and the ability of the restaurants to get.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The right to private action model is that enabling the restaurant to take civil action so they can go to court and get relief from the court system on being charged excessive fees.
Oh, okay. So the way I understand it is that you're paying a percentage of the food order for the delivery fee, whether you have ordered one meal for one person at a cost of $15, you pay 5% of $15, which I guess is what, 70? Anyway, whatever that is, you pay that. But if you ordered, meals for a family of 7 and the bill is $150, you pay, you pay 5% of $150, or that would be $750, I guess. Anyway, you're paying a lot more for this. I mean, the delivery is the pickup, the driving, the car, the taking it up. Yes, more food for more people would be heavier maybe, but I mean, it seems like the delivery people are being paid more for delivering more food, and it just doesn't, it seems like, there's a cost of delivery that could be tacked on whatever the price of the meal is. So does anybody do that model of, scaling according to the cost of the meal or the whatever's being delivered?
No, not in our research. It's just a flat commission on the total value of the order.
This is the model. And I know pizza companies have been delivering for years, but now everybody is. And, do they use that model, or do pizza shops usually have their own people working for them that deliver the pizzas?
So most of the pizza places that deliver have, it's pizza delivery has been a model for decades. So they have built that infrastructure and model. And so smaller restaurants who don't have that elect to use these third-party services.
Okay. So with that, seeing no other council questions right now, we will move on to public comments. I'll open public comment on this item. Madam City Clerk, do we have anyone wishing to speak? See anyone?
Madam Mayor, we do have attendees, a number of attendees, and I believe we have one person who just raised his hand, Jaspreet Kaur. And if I could please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jaspreet Kaur, and I just wanted to call in support of the item 7 for the temporary limit on third-party food delivery fees. As we know, the statewide shelter-in-place order has placed unanticipated and serious financial strains on local restaurants, especially those who are already operating on thin margins. And it's contributing to the financial pressures in the industry, foreshadowing this global pandemic. And the takeout and delivery orders are currently one of the primary sources of revenues for restaurants and are crucial for their business during this crisis. Capping the per order fees at 15% will ease the financial burden on struggling restaurants during this pandemic. And as we know, it is uncertain if restaurants are going to be able to from COVID due to many factors, such as the new safety and sanitation requirements, how quickly the public will start to dine in again, as well as lower service capacity. And there's no surprise that restaurants continue to suffer significant loss of revenue for an ongoing period of time. So to conclude, I just want to say lowering the third-party delivery service fee at 15% will ease the local business troubles of Hayward. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Timothy. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and the City Council members. So my name is Timothy, and I'm a Hayward resident. So I want to support for the item 7 temporary limit on the third-party food delivery fees. So that it will help the local restaurants. Since the outbreaks and the shelter-in-place started, I have witnessed many businesses and close friends suffering with economic burdens. And according to my acquaintance who owns a business, told me that a small local restaurant wouldn't make more benefits with. They wouldn't make much benefit with using the delivery service than direct orders. So for this reason, lowering the third-party delivery service fee at 15% will ease and support the local business community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, no additional individuals wishing to speak at this moment. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll go ahead and close public comment and entertain a motion.
I'll
Councilmember,
move on the item.
Mayor, I move the item.
she had her hand up, so I'm going to let her. You want to second it, Councilmember Zermania?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion has been made to approve the staff recommendation by Councilmember Wahab, seconded by Councilmember Zermania. Did you want to speak to the item, Councilmember Wahab?
Yeah, just real quickly. I appreciate staff's work primarily on this. I know that I also want to thank our Chamber of Commerce. I know that they have been informing a lot of the businesses to provide feedback and so forth. It's often very hard to solicit feedback, but I do believe that this is a step in supporting our small businesses. I also believe, one, I do want this to be expanded to Instacart and things like that that are more grocery oriented and, let's say, healthy food spots for seniors and other folks that just want to make their own foods. But I also want to state that I do believe that if the city does promote this in social media and so forth, more people would be inclined to utilize these services and therefore help Hayward businesses. Hayward businesses, regardless of whether or not ads are placed in these platforms, they are automatically highlighted. So a lot of people just scroll and try something new, whether it's a new sushi joint or anything like that. So I do believe that this helps businesses, especially while they are hurting. So I fully support this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Zermania, did you want to speak to the item?
Yes. My wife and I think, have visited every restaurant in the city of Hayward. That's something that we need to do more of. We need to shop Hayward first and eat Hayward first. We can do San Leandro and Union City later, or San Francisco, but Hayward first, please. And I actually don't use any of these services because I prefer to go there myself, run into the employees, run into the folks. And I like this because it's supporting our a good part of our businesses. So thank you for the staff for doing this. And hopefully all will vote for it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Mendel.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I will definitely be supporting this. But I want to say I want to go beyond that a little bit, because I think that I find the model that these delivery companies are using to be very dishonest or deceitful. They're sort of tricking us into thinking, oh, it's free, it doesn't cost anything, and then putting the whole burden on the business. And that's not right. And, they're charging me, who always drives to these restaurants to pick it up myself, the exact same amount as someone who's having another person deliver it to them. That's not logical. It's not right. And it's not fair to really anyone involved. I think that for those of us who want or need the delivery service, we should pay a little bit more for that. And it should be obvious how much more we're paying. It shouldn't be hidden in the bill, and it shouldn't be, stuck on the restaurateur. It should be on the person who's receiving the benefit, the person who's ordering the food and having it delivered to their front door, which is a convenience. So while I'm fully supportive of this temporary emergency moratorium, I would actually be suggesting that we consider looking at, whether some restrictions might need to be put in place permanently. When before the moratorium ends. And, that might just be as simple as saying, look, there's a real hard limit on what you can force the restaurants to pay. And if you want to charge more than that for your delivery service, then you put it on the bill and you make it transparent to the person ordering the food, because they are the one that has the ability to make a choice if they don't like the size of the fee. And that will force the various companies to compete on price rather than just charging whatever the heck they want to the restaurant, and none of us are the wiser. We don't know if Grubhub or what DoorDash is more helpful to our restaurants because we have no way of comparing price. So anyway, that's for perhaps a few months from now, something I would encourage staff to think about, encourage my colleagues on the council to consider when the time comes, and perhaps even expanding it to other services. If it's transparent and it's obvious what the fee is to the person who's ordering it, then, I'm inclined to let the free market do its thing. If it's hidden, then I think we have a role to say, no, there's a limit on how much you can hide in that of a delivery fee. So just general principle there. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Did anyone else want to say anything? Councilmember Wahab, your hand is up. Was that from
Yeah, sorry. Councilmember Mendel, I do agree with you 100%. I think my original request was 5%, number one. I also didn't necessarily want it temporary. I do like the idea of transparency. I would be happy to entertain what you stated in the motion to look at this long-term as well, if you would like.
So I wasn't suggesting that we try to change the emergency ordinance tonight, but I wouldn't mind if the motion were changed to sort of direct staff to consider, a long-term limit at some later date. I think that would be a good thing to
100% agree with you. I do believe the charging model is predatory, so I do appreciate that. Staff, I have changed my motion to include that as well. So if the seconder would approve, we have direction.
Zermania? Do you approve of the
I don't know what was suggested.
What? I'm sorry.
I don't know what was suggested.
Okay. Well, she is suggesting that this suggestion for future consideration of a more permanent action in this matter, that staff be directed to bring this back at a later date. I think we can do that with or without having it in the motion. But if you want to put it in the motion, direct staff to do that. I would also recommend that it start with the Economic Development Committee.
Yes.
Take a deeper look at the whole issue once the pandemic is over. And okay, so
I believe it is unnecessary, but fine if it's included, but it's not necessary. Thank you.
All right. So that is the motion with that extra staff direction to look at the wider issue. I don't see any other hands raised. I'm going to say actually learning all about this. I really didn't know a lot about this. I've heard of DoorDash but Grubhub, and they're all just weird names to me. And meanwhile, my husband and I have been ordering out at restaurants during this pandemic, and we always go pick up our food ourselves. And I feel a little resentful that that I'm paying as much as somebody who's having it brought to their door. But I'm not going to change that because but I do think for anyone listening tonight, I mean, that, think about that. Think about the restaurants that we're all, I think, trying to save during this time of they're having to operate under such restrictive conditions. That we all hope will still be there when the pandemic is over, and that you will be helping that restaurant if you don't use this service, but simply order the food and then go pick it up yourself. So anyway, with that, I will ask the city clerk to conduct a roll call vote on this motion that was made by Councilmember Wahab and seconded by Councilmember Zermania.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendel.
Yes.
Councilmember Salinas.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Yes.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes. And the motion is with 7 aye votes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we're moving on to item number 8, which is an extension of the commercial evictions moratorium and adoption of an emergency ordinance amending our temporary moratorium on evictions for commercial establishments to extend it to January 31st, 2021. And I think are we going to hear from?
Yes. This time you will hear from me, Jennifer, Deputy City Manager. I'm going to share my screen. Is that visible?
Yes.
Okay, it's taking a second to load. There we go. Okay. Is that all visible now? Great. So I'll be presenting this. As already mentioned, this is to consider extending the existing temporary moratorium we have on commercial evictions directly related to the COVID crisis until January 31st, 2021. We went over this in the last presentation. I just here to kind of state the record that obviously a lot going on, a lot of shelter-in-place orders, things changing that are still affecting our business community. Regarding emergency moratoriums, initially the city enacted the temporary emergency moratorium on residential rental evictions. Later, the Judicial Council adopted an early April emergency court rule that stops all evictions and foreclosures during the state of emergency, plus 90 days after. Then the city council decided April 7th to expand to prevent displacement of residential and commercial tenants, and then extended that moratorium at the end of June until September 30th. So that moratorium is now set to expire if there is no action that's taken tonight. Also, what's important to understand is that the state took action against residential evictions through the Tenant, Homeowner, and Small Landlord Relief and Stabilization Act of 2020. Folks refer to more as Assembly Bill 3088. That was enacted on August 31st, which essentially put a moratorium on all residential evictions until January 31st, 2021. Also, as part of that legislation, local governments were essentially precluded from extending any existing moratoria on residential evictions beyond their already enacted expiration dates. So as a result, the city, we're prohibited by state law to extend our temporary moratorium on any residential evictions beyond September 30th. Or at least until after January 31st, 2021. The court is also still not processing evictions until after the end of the year. That state legislation did not talk about commercial evictions at all. So the city council has the ability to extend, is not precluded by state law to extend the moratorium on commercial evictions. This is how our existing moratorium on commercial evictions work. I just want to remind everyone and how this would work in an extension. So it would include all commercial units. Now it would exclude any residential tenants and homeowners per state law. We're recommending extending it to January 31st, 2021. So that way it lines up with the state's moratorium. So in the event that the city wants to take an action on the residential side, if the state doesn't extend that, and that we kind of tee them all up at the same time. The moratorium that the city already has in place for commercial evictions prohibits evictions for non-payment of rent related to COVID-19 and associated late fees. So just being clear that there is a nexus with the COVID that has to be established. There are no-fault evictions prohibits no-fault evictions except related to health and safety or red tag of units. So really severe or significant issues that create health and safety issues. And it also prohibits retaliation against tenants. The requirements of our existing commercial eviction, which we're recommending to extend tonight, requires that there's a good faith effort to notify the landlord and that tenants have to provide documentation to support their claim that there is a COVID nexus. The payment of past due rent the tenant is still liable for unpaid rent. So this is not a forgiveness of rent. It is essentially a deferral. So they still have to pay that rent. Terms, and then no eviction for non-payment of rent during the moratorium period within 180 days after the expiration. So it gives businesses a chance to get back on their feet, really kind of have a more stable kind of revenue, and then kind of be working out hopefully something with their landlord to repay that rent. Requires that tenants meet and confer. In this case, obviously, commercial tenants meet and confer prior to. It requires landlords to meet and confer prior to initiating any action against their tenants. So really hoping that people work together to try to work these things out and give them plenty of time to try to do that as businesses get back on their feet. So our recommended action tonight is to extend the moratorium until January 31st, 2021, and just, really to state for the record, if not, then the moratorium will expire September 30th. Obviously, the state of emergency continues. We still have restrictions on commercial businesses under the shelter-in-place order. We still have high unemployment rates, really still seeing those impacts to businesses. So staff, we understand it's tough times, but we really, for landlords as well, but we really see this as important to protect businesses, that there's still a lot of factors working against them. And so we're really, think this is the right thing to do. And this was listed as an emergency ordinance. That would take 5 affirmative votes, similar to action prior to this. If there are only 4 affirmative votes, then it would be adopted at the next council meeting and then effective 30 days later. So if approved, we will inform commercial landlords and businesses of their rights and responsibilities under the ordinance. We did also send notices to a number of the commercial business organizations, let them know that we were taking this action. We did receive a letter from one landlord opposing this, but generally did not hear anything in opposition from any of the business associations or Chamber of Commerce related to this item. So I'm happy to answer questions now. Mayor, would you prefer that I stop sharing at this point so we can see everyone's pictures?
I have trouble seeing the participants, I guess, when you're sharing the screen. So,
okay.
So tell me how to do that. But yeah, thanks. Okay. All right. Yes. And I think we do have some questions. Councilmember Mendel.
Thank you, Mayor. So we hearing an echo, but hopefully I'm the only one. So we got one letter from a landlord who pointed out that they had a tenant who was unable to pay the rent and then subleased the space and received rent and then still refused to pay any rent to the property owner, which strikes me as a pretty crappy thing to do and a loophole that we probably want to try and close here. So talk to me about what the ordinance has proposed, what remedies there are in the ordinance as proposed, and whether it would require modification to sort of say, hey, if you sublease the space, then you've got to actually forward all that rent to the property owner if you're not paying your rent.
Yeah, I'll start, but I'd ask we have a new city attorney in the city attorney's office, Vadim, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name yet, so I don't want to mispronounce it, but he is also a panelist here, so he couldn't step in as well. He worked with me on putting this together. But my understanding, the way the ordinance is written is that they have to demonstrate a loss of income. And if they are actually receiving income from the property, I think the landlord would have the ability to potentially I guess they couldn't really, it would be hard to evict them. The court's not even processing any evictions unless there's a health and safety issue. But it is certainly something that, they could look at to try to kind of use that leverage with their tenant. I don't know, Vadim, if you want to step in and respond as well.
Give me one sec. Good evening, Council, Mayor. I think that pretty much sums it up. The tenant would have to demonstrate in writing their inability to pay. And in this situation that was presented, the sublease, if the landlord was able to prove that that inability to pay was actually fraudulent, I suppose they could move forward. But as Jen pointed out, the courts in Alameda County have stated that they are extending their prohibition on evictions until the end of the year, so at least through December 31st. So there's essentially no recourse on the eviction side, but they can try to negotiate some kind of an agreement otherwise. But there is this provision that requires documented proof of their inability to pay in the ordinance.
And so what I'm hearing is that there's nothing more that we can do to prevent that kind of abuse. Is that or am I being unfair?
No, I think at least until the courts start processing evictions, I don't think the landlord has much recourse in terms of being able to evict a tenant like that. I think, and Vadim, you can correct if I'm wrong, but after that, and if the courts start processing evictions, then our ordinance would allow that tenant to potentially be evicted if they couldn't, if they couldn't show sufficient documentation and loss of income. So if they're getting sublease income, and they're not actually losing income, then, that could be something that the landlord could use in court to evict them and demonstrate that. But that would be after the courts start processing evictions. So I think what I'm hearing is that our ordinance protects them, but because the courts aren't processing evictions, there's not a lot we can do until the end of the year. Is that right, Vadim?
Yes, and at the end, the rent is still owed by the tenant to the landlord, and so the landlord, while they may not have a recourse right now, when the courts reopen and they're able to seek eviction as a remedy for that tenant, they have the option of filing a civil action to recover those damages as well.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. And thank you and welcome, Mr. I'll try it, Sedelnikov?
Sedelnikov, yes. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for showing me up. That was good.
Well, it pronounces like it reads. So
yes.
Okay, and let's see who's next. Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you. Follow up on my colleagues' questions here, and absolutely welcome to Hayward. We're glad to see you, Vadim. And so, as evidenced by the last item we had, we've been trying to. We have a set of policies that are really about people not being taken advantage of, including this one. We have people in unimaginable financial distress due to residential issues or that threaten their homes, that threaten their businesses, their livelihood, which then threatens their homes and all the ability to care for themselves and their families, and on and on and on. And so, hence, we have these ordinances both on the residential side and the commercial side. And I'm still concerned, as my colleague articulated, that there are also property owners who are getting taken advantage of in this time, who also are trying to take care of themselves and their families and maintain properties in quality condition, which we've asked them to do, and act in good faith by forgiving rents and so on. And so I wonder, I'd really be interested in, perhaps it looks like a mediation process, because we took the teeth out of, designed it to say your lack of paying rent has to have a COVID nexus. I agree with you. The language is there, but we took the teeth out of it because there is no eviction. Some of that is the courts, some of that is us, and nobody wants to see anybody on the streets, whether that be from loss of business or loss of housing. But I wonder if there is an interim step, something like the mediation piece, and maybe there needs to be a fee that gets charged on the commercial side to help pay for it. I don't know the logistics, and I don't know that we want to. Anyway, I'm not proposing anything necessarily tonight, but I'm interested in is that something that could be explored to give property owners a little more, another tool to try and address the abuse that does happen on the other side of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, because we have a residential stabilization ordinance where we already had that system set up in terms of mediation, it was easy to expand that to the eviction moratorium as well. And, I would be hesitant, because this is temporary in nature, to create a whole new program that actually charging a fee and sending that to everyone. And I mean, it is a lot of work to establish a fee. We'd have to come back, get that fee created. And for a temporary situation, I would be hesitant to invest that kind of staff resources in doing something like that. And I just want to be clear. I mean, and Vadim can correct me if I'm wrong, but our ordinance is a no-fault eviction. So, once the court starts processing evictions again, and a commercial tenant is being a bad apple, like it sounds like in this case, our ordinance does not protect that bad apple. So they could be evicted if they're shown to not really truly have a COVID nexus or don't really have a business income. So I think our ordinance shouldn't protect someone like that if they're really not being, acting in good faith and not, can't really establish that. But I would be hesitant of investing in a whole new fee program for this, given the temporary nature of the moratorium.
That's helpful feedback. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and that's correct. Essentially, the situation we find ourselves in is we have a city ordinance that we're talking about today, but in addition and on top of that, we have a Alameda Superior Court order that says they are not going to enforce eviction. So if that was not the case, the example that was provided to you, that would be an exception to this ordinance if the landlord was able to demonstrate that the tenant didn't have that nexus and a COVID-related inability to pay.
I guess what I'm thinking of as my final thought, and sort of really in the questioning phase of, is even eviction sort of the best tool for handling some of these things that, we've heard, stuff tends to build up, and then the only recourse is this eviction tool, and which is more costly for everybody and takes even more time, where the person can stay, additional harm can be accumulated, and wondering if our mediation step may, even in non-COVID times, help to get to these issues quicker than the court system can. So again, not necessarily something we solve tonight, but I'm wondering about that. So I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Ott, for your thorough report, and welcome to our new city attorney. I thank you for explaining briefly the issue on the residential side. It was a lot more clear in your presentation than the staff report, so thank you for elaborating on that. I'm just wondering, I understand the courts are not processing any type of evictions right now. We know that there are some financial assistance for tenants on the residential side, but are you aware of anything with the League of Women Voters? I know there's forbearances for home properties, but I haven't heard much about commercial properties. So can you just kind of give us an update on what's being done on that front?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Vadim knows, but I don't know. I mean, we try to track this legislation. I can tell you, I mean, I don't know of anything concrete that's on the books, but I do know that it is coming up at the state level with the governor and the need for landlords that, I mean, I've heard in a number of conferences and webinars on both the residential landlord side and the commercial landlord side that the hope is that the federal government steps in because they're expecting this kind of tsunami of potential evictions once these moratoriums expire. And I think there's, investors, everyone are kind of hoping that the federal government actually steps in. And that hopefully would happen for commercial landlords as well. But I think there is a recognition that landlords are in trouble too. But I think the initial efforts have been to protect the tenants and the businesses and but I do think that people are aware of the issue at the state and federal level. And I think we cross our fingers and we can can advocate with our own legislative folks to try to see that happen.
Yeah, I really would encourage us to have these ongoing conversations with our lobbyists, want to keep businesses up and running, want to keep people housed. I'm worried when COVID lifts, just what's going to happen. We want to keep people as whole as much as possible. So any efforts we can get our lobbyists to do on that front would be very helpful. And this, again, is an emergency ordinance, so it requires the 5 votes as well, correct?
Correct. And if there's 4, it would still go into effect. It would just take the second reading and the 30-day effective period.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Zermino?
Thank you. Thank you for the report, Jennifer. Thank you, Mayor and Mr. Sidernikov. Welcome to the family. I'm really disappointed that we cannot do anything to help folks who are being taken advantage of by those folks who will just do everything as the email suggested from when that was sent to us. It really breaks my heart, because we actually do have many folks who are in dire need of help, and here we have probably others out there who are just taking advantage of the situation, and there's no way that we can get our legal team to come up with something. I mean, I find it hard to believe that we cannot do that. So if you have an opportunity, Vadim and Jennifer and Michael Laus and everybody, get something going, please. I am sure that the email came from somebody who actually is suffering, and I'm sure there are others. On page 3 of the report, talks of August the 31st, 2020, the state enacted legislation called the Tenant, Homeowner, and Small Landlord Relief and Stabilization Act of 2020. My question, does that include businesses?
No, it does not.
Wow.
Our reading of the state legislation and everything we've kind of looked at, it does not include a moratorium on commercial evictions. And that's why we are recommending tonight to extend that. And because if it did, we'd be precluded by state law of taking this action tonight. But our reading of that state legislation is that it does not apply to commercial evictions.
Yeah, they should have included up in Sacramento. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I don't see any other questions, hands raised by council members right now. So, okay. We're going to open the public comment on this item. And Madam City Clerk, did we have any members of the public who wish to speak?
So Mayor Halliday, I see attendees, but no one is raising their hand. And again, if you'd like to speak, if you wish to speak, go ahead and select raise hand. Go 1, 2, 3. No one is raising their hand, Mayor Halliday.
Close public comment on this item and look to council. And again, I see Council Member Wahab's hand raised, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the item.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Wahab, seconded by Councilmember Zermano. I don't see any comments. I think we made a lot of comments in our question period there, but and expressed concerns. I will be supportive of the motion, and seeing no other requests to speak, I'll ask Madam City Clerk if you will do a roll call vote.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendel.
Yes.
Councilmember Salinas.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Zermano.
Yes.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes, and this motion also passes with 7 aye votes and therefore is enacted tonight as an emergency ordinance. Thank you all. And we will move on to item number 9, which is regarding the League of California Cities annual policy resolutions. There is one resolution being proposed by the League of California Cities this year, and it has to do with I should let I'm really blanking on the wording of this, but it's to make social media companies responsible for criminal action on their platforms, or for, I think, encouragement of criminal action on their platforms. So with that, I will start the item with a staff report from City Manager McAdoo.
And I am actually just going to share my screen so our Assistant City Manager, Maria Picado, can give the presentation. Can you see the PowerPoint?
We can see it, Madam City Manager, but I can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna if I stay here, is that better?
Yes, that is.
I'm not presenting, so I will just let our assistant city manager speak.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item requests that Council discuss the resolution on the agenda for the League's annual business meeting so that the Council delegate can vote on the city's behalf. Can you go to the next slide, please, Kelly? This year's League annual conference is scheduled for October 7th through the 9th, and it will be conducted virtually. The annual business meeting will be held on the last day on October 9th, and this is where the voting delegates from member municipalities vote on the League policy resolutions that are being considered this year. And you may recall that on July 21st, the council designated the mayor as the city's voting delegate, and council members Salinas and Wahab as the alternate voting delegates in the event that the mayor could not attend. And the mayor is attending this year's League conference, as are council members Salinas and Cermeño. Next slide, please. This year's the League will only consider one policy. The resolution is calling for an amendment of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996 to require social media companies to remove materials which promote criminal activities. Next slide. A summary of the resolution is listed on this particular slide, but a copy of the League resolution, background information, and including the League's staff analysis can be found on pages 8 through 13 of the League packet, which is attached to your staff report. And the purpose of this particular staff report is to provide the council with information about this resolution and to obtain direction from the council regarding the city's official position on the resolution so that the mayor can vote accordingly on behalf of the city at the October 9th meeting. This concludes staff presentation. We did receive 2 correspondence in opposition of this particular resolution, and I think the mayor and council received a copy of those 2. One came in yesterday and one came in late this afternoon. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any council member questions on this? I'm not seeing any, so I'll open public comment. Wait a minute, I did saw a hand. Council member Cermeño.
Unmute. Okay. Thank you, Maria. I'm just wondering if our audience out there, all the folks listening and seeing us, know what could be a post that is pushing for criminal activity. Is there an example that we could give folks out in TV land?
So I believe, go ahead, Maria.
No, go ahead, Kelly.
Was that a no-no?
No, it's fine. Actually, our police chief is on the call and can maybe share a couple examples of how social media has been used to organize criminal activity just recently and locally.
For the sake of transparency for our folks, our residents to know what it could be. Hello there, Captain. Chief. I'm sorry. Sorry, the Captain. Hello, Chief.
Hi, council members. Cermeño, how you doing?
Good.
I think the easiest example and a recent one for everyone was after the George Floyd protest, we experienced a lot of rioting and looting in the Bay Area. And it was all coordinated through social media, which malls to hit at what times. And the locations of police deployments were established and disseminated on social media. So that's a great example. There's an event coming up in Hayward next weekend where we're currently coordinating with the Bay Area Chiefs to make sure that we have a group of officers from different cities to deploy to the cities where this activity is going to occur. And that whole thing has been orchestrated strictly through social media as well. We've also had incidents where social media was set up to for juveniles to attack other juveniles and for gangs to fight each other. So this activity, it's when you look at the resolution, it talks about implementing a reasonable program to identify and remove the content. You'll never get everything, but this resolution will go to the heart of looking at that's obviously criminal activity and removing it before it can be widely disseminated and used to organize groups that are descending on cities and bringing looting and rioting and chaos.
And it's a California-wide, current League of Cities, so it would be California.
So this is actually federal legislation. So the league is taking a position to basically ask Congress to amend this legislation.
Very good. Very good.
And I just also like to point out, I think the chief has mentioned to us, there's a lot of human trafficking activity that happens online as well as child exploitation. So those are also concerns that have been raised.
Thank you, Chief. Be safe.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you. Actually, this question is for the chief as well, so hopefully you're still here. There you are. Thank you. Hi, Chief. So I recall an incident, and if I'm remembering this wrong, please correct me. Donuts, street racing is something we get a lot of complaints about. And there was one of our officers was able to catch some folks that were doing that and prevent some additional activity, specifically because they were able to find the organizing on social media. Am I remembering that incident right?
You are. The sideshows are almost exclusively disseminated via social media. And Councilmember Zermanio pointed out about the national legislation. A lot of the white supremacy and hate groups that are infiltrating some of the Black Lives Matter and other groups. We believe that that's what they're doing. There's also investigations that I won't go into on social media with some of these groups that are organized to infiltrate peaceful protests, which we obviously support. But they're infiltrating the peaceful protests to cause issues and violence. So, I mean, I don't think we could go wrong with this, with supporting this legislation, and that's the police department's stance on this. But you are absolutely correct. The sideshows that are plaguing not just the Bay Area, but I think California and probably the nation as a whole is orchestrated almost exclusively via social media.
Okay, so your statement about we can't go wrong is my next question is, so we've been able to do some prosecution, we've been able to do some prevention because law enforcement could find these activities on social media. There was and I apologize, I did not write down the names, but there was anti-human trafficking legislation that went on, that was passed in 2018 to try and get at exactly this issue. And it's my understanding that that's actually driven some of the activity even deeper underground, but hasn't necessarily curtailed it. And so I'm wondering if you can comment, are we taking away a tool to prevent crime in driving this conversation off of mainstream social media?
Well, I'm a big fan of prevention, not apprehension. And I think if we can remove the platform, I mean, let's be honest, these folks don't know each other. The reason you get 200 people that don't know each other to a location is because of social media. You don't have their phone numbers. You don't have their email addresses. But if you post it on social media, folks that normally wouldn't be there will see it and be there. So I think the prevention piece is paramount in this thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I thought about that too. So good question, but good answer too. Don't see any other questions right now. So I'm going to open public comment on this item and ask the city clerk to assist with that. I think we did have some people wanting to comment on this, so we'll open.
Yes. Great. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, we have Joe Mullen. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Mayor Halliday and City Council members, thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time. My name is Joe Mullen, and I'm here on behalf of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, We're a nonprofit organization that works to protect privacy and free expression in the digital world. We were founded in 1990, and EFF represents more than 30,000 dues-paying members nationwide, including thousands in the Bay Area. One of our supporters made us aware just today, in fact, only several hours ago, of the California League of Cities proposal to undermine the Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. That's 47 U.S. Code Section 230, and that the Hayward City Council would be considering the proposal this evening. We were surprised and dismayed to learn about this proposal from the California League of Cities. This is the first meeting that EFF has attended to oppose this proposal. I very much doubt it will be the last. We just learned about this today. If Congress were to do what this resolution asks for, it will be an invitation for private lawyers to go after online platforms. The proposal asks Congress to mandate that online platforms not only take down material that allegedly, quote, solicits criminal activity, but it mandates that online platforms will have to actively aid police in the identification and apprehension of users who are said to solicit such activity. If the vague allegation that a platform was used to solicit criminal activity is enough to spur prosecutions and lawsuits against an online platform or a small website, it will result in widespread internet censorship. If Congress were to pass such a policy, it will provide a lever to government officials to eliminate protest and rally organizing via social media. Online platforms would be coerced into potentially performing surveillance of citizens in Hayward and many other cities. It's important to remember that Section 230 does not just protect large social media companies. It protects every website owner and host. I would urge you to imagine a small news website or blog that covers Hayward, but also has a public comment section. Now, imagine an anonymous commenter said something in that comment section that police believe was illegal. If that person's speech broke the law, there are already mechanisms for the police to go after that person. They can investigate. What Section 230 says is that in that situation, you should not go after the owner of the Hayward News website or the Hayward News local blog. The person who publishes a blog or information about what's going on in Hayward is not a criminal. They do not deserve to be sued or prosecuted because of what someone else said in their comment section. We urge you to not support it. It would censor the speech of residents of Hayward and other cities. Thank you for listening to my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Carl Goringe. Go ahead and unmute.
Hi, good evening, Hayward City Council, Mayor, and staff. Hi, my name is Carl Gorns. I'm a Hayward resident. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act allows and promotes free speech and innovation online. It provides immunity to internet services that host third-party content. It already has important exceptions for illegal acts. It is not broken. This isn't just about limiting criminal activities online. This bill is actually, in truth, a way to remove from social media postings about lawful protests by simply claiming that such speech solicits criminal activity. One way to tell us the source of where this measure may be coming from is from, if you look at the fifth whereas clause of the resolution, where they quote from Bill Barr's U.S. Justice Department, which, as you know, has been using federal troops to crack down on protests in Portland against the will of local officials. This modification to Section 230 is likely being pushed in order to take down so-called criminal organization of protests through the use of social media. It's an attack on our First Amendment rights of free speech and assembly. What this is really about is giving law enforcement a means to censor free speech and assembly online and forcing social media companies to remove these forms of constitutionally protected speech. It will also have wide-ranging unintended consequences of saddling smaller entities, such with burdensome content moderation practices that would entrench larger entities such as Facebook, Twitter, and Google, and make it difficult for the existence of smaller and nonprofit websites and apps. Criminals will always find other ways to communicate online, on the dark web, through decentralized or encrypted apps or platforms which are outside of US jurisdiction. This resolution will not be that effective. This resolution to amend Section 230, if it were to be implemented, would be very bad for this nation and for the residents of Hayward. I implore you to please not only not approve this motion, but to instead, when attending the League of California Cities Conference this October, to please vote D to disapprove this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments, Madam City Clerk?
No additional speakers, Madam Mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
Public comment. Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you, Mayor. I personally have read into this. I believe that this is a deeply misguided resolution, and I urge council to consider some of the ramifications of passing such a supportive resolution of this nature. Primarily, there is a domino effect. I do believe in freedom of speech, criminal activity. I think we're playing fast and loose with the language that is provided here, as well as the assumptions of what it will do. I understand that we definitely want to take preventive measures to ensure that criminal activity doesn't happen, but this is not it. This limits freedom of speech. Who is to be the judge on this? I would like our city attorney to weigh in regards to freedom of speech in this particular resolution.
I don't know if he's still having technical difficulties. Michael, are you able to join us, or if you want to text me and let me know? He still can't get on.
Anybody from our city attorney's office?
I think they've all left the meeting at this point.
Okay, well, I do move to reject this particular proposal.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right.
And I would like to speak to it, but I don't want to cut off Councilmember Wahab.
Yes, I just primarily want to say that I do believe that this is a step towards Big Brother. I think even the speakers who stated, and again, this is a very odd resolution to have the California League of California Cities to bring forth. Again, I do believe that this is misguided, and I genuinely believe in freedom of speech, regardless of what type of speech that is. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you. So I understand, I think I understand where this was coming from. And I appreciate our chief's insights about prevention. I'm all for prevention as well. And on first reading, okay, a platform that has such a broad audience that can very quickly recruit people to do something that may be harmful to a community. Of course, that's something we want to stop. Absolutely. And as Councilmember Wahab mentioned, where does it stop from there? Who's to say what feels very clear cut about what is right and wrong very quickly becomes gray. And I think, what I would urge and will urge the league to do, and I'll explain that in a minute, is to work with the National League of Cities, EFF, the platforms, and anybody else who is willing to be part of the conversation to talk about the issues. The inciting violence, inciting criminal activity is not okay. And how do we do that in a way that doesn't create a whole opportunity to start silencing people who have opinions with which we disagree? That's dangerous. And I don't think that the league or the cities are quite ready to put forward a proposal that protects both free speech and the safety of communities. So I can't support this motion at this time. And to explain the comment I said earlier,
you can support the motion. You can't support the resolution.
I can't support the resolution. I apologize. Thank you for that. Yes, I can't support the resolution. I absolutely do support the motion. And also I sit on one of the policy committees for the League of California Cities that will be considering this and making their own recommendations separate from the Hayward recommendation. And I will make these comments there as well. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may just clarify for the council that this is not a league resolution. This is a resolution that was put forth to one of the league committees by 5 Southern California cities, and it's in the packet that the league sent you. And the league will be considering it at the annual meeting, but this was not brought forth by the league. It was brought forth by 5 cities in Southern California. If you want, I can name them for you. It's the city of Cerritos, city of Hawaiian Gardens, city of Lakewood, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, and Roseville. And at the annual meeting, that's when they're going to be considering this resolution that was brought forward. The league staff did do an analysis, which is included in your packet. And that staff analysis does not have a recommendation one way or another, but it's on pages 8 through 13 if you want to see some of the various perspectives that they present. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, this is a proposal, and that's what we will be voting on, whether the league will endorse this proposal. And that's what I will be actually voting. I actually am also on the resolutions committee of the league too, in addition to being our voting delegate so I'll be getting some input on that at that level too. Councilmember Mendel?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I'm a little torn on this one because I think that there is a need for our large social media companies to take more responsibility for the content that they put out there and that they allow their users to put out there. I'm kind of sick and tired of these large media companies saying, oh, well, we didn't post it, so we're not going to police it, we're not going to look at it. And if you want to say death to all Muslims, hey, well, that's just free speech and that's okay. I don't agree with that. I think that they do have a responsibility to do more than they are. I feel very strongly about that. What I don't feel strongly about is this particular resolution. I don't know enough about it. It isn't clear to me if it's a step in, the right direction or not. And so because I'm just not clear on the details, I will be supporting the motion to not support the League of California Cities resolution. But I do think more needs to be done. I just wish that we had a more well thought out proposal before us, perhaps, and that we'd had more time to think about it. And if we had a technology committee, that'd be a great place to have a conversation like that in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Marquez?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also torn, but I do have a procedural question. Does it need to be a unanimous vote in order for the mayor to support the resolution?
I don't think so.
The mayor is going to vote at the annual meeting on behalf of the city. So she will listen to all of the council and then vote on behalf of the city.
Mm-hmm. But
it's a simple majority. So whatever, it's the majority of the council that prevails. So whatever the direction of the majority of the council is, that's how the mayor will vote on the resolution.
Got it. Okay. So I'm also torn on this. I understand the intent. I know we dealt with a lot of issues back, I think it was like the first week of June. So definitely agree with Councilmember Mendel's comments with regard to companies having to take more responsibility. I just don't know if this is the answer. And I wish the cities that brought this forward would have collaborated with some cities up north just to get a better cross-section and more input. So I support the intent. I'm just worried about this privilege being abused. That's my concern. I think it's a little bit too vague. So with that, I will also support the motion and hope that we could revisit this and strengthen. I think what is the intent is to really get at the issue and prevent crime from occurring, not just in our community, but throughout the entire country. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Zermeño.
All right. Thank you, Maria. I am not sure what these 5 cities are, I don't know if it's, well, I'm not going to get into politics, but I certainly would want to find out. I would rather have had a collection of 20 or 30 cities from California up and down the state, but not 5 from Southern California. I am a little leery about that. I do. He's going to bed.
Good night.
Okay. The idea of controlling criminal activity is a tremendous one. It's terrible what happens on occasion. But just because I don't think that we have an overall or a general company of cities come forth with this particular proposition, I can support it. So, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Salinas.
Yeah, I want to let me just kind of give one perspective, because and this is something that I personally dealt with earlier this year, and it was a situation that came up, and it's not the first incident like this that came up, and when I read this is what came to my mind. So there was a teenager in Hayward. He was a Latino teenager in South Hayward, and he was on a high school campus, and he was jumped, right, and he was beat up badly, and he was beat up so badly that he was sent to. He first went to St. Rose, but then they had to send him to Children's Hospital, and he had severe head trauma, and all of the associated pains that came with that. Well, during this incident, and he was jumped by 6 other teenagers, and they filmed it, and they posted it on YouTube, right? And, when the mom went to school officials, the mom had mixed feelings about the response of what the school was going to do. But the issue was this, is that she had it on video, and they had posted it on YouTube, right? They had posted it on Facebook, and they had all the, they had the kids. You couldn't, it was very clear on who the other boys were. And so, I find it, I say that story because, we're sitting here having this sort of intellectual conversation about, privacy and about content and about, what I wanted to do was sort of put a real sort of incident in here, because if that were to happen to, if I had a son and that had happened to my son, and a social media company would get away with posting that or letting the culprits post that and get away with and not being held accountable for posting that kind of content of, a young kid getting beat up so badly that he was put in the hospital, right? And so I say that because I wanted to take out this theoretical conversation about of what this resolution is trying to address and sort of where we took it tonight, right? And I understand the callers. I get what they're saying, and I understand my colleagues, and I understand Councilmember Wahab and Lamden, and I see what they're saying, and I also am very aware of what Councilmember Mendel had alluded to, but I say that story because I really wanted to exhibit to families in Hayward about sort of what really at the heart of this issue is about. And so anyways, I agree with a lot of the comments that, these 5 cities that one of them is in Northern California, I think. But, these 5 cities, I don't know what their local politics is. I don't know what other incidents has happened. I don't know what spurred this resolution. I think Councilmember Marquez is correct. I wish they would have, maybe reached out to other cities throughout the state. I don't know if this is basically a response to Black Lives Matter and in some of those activities, or if this is or just really what the intent is. So. I will be participating in the League of California Cities, and I do plan on sitting in this discussion, and I know the mayor will certainly be there. But those are those are my feelings right now about this, and so anyways, right now I have a little bit of mixed feelings, but. I do support the motion that's on the table, but while I make this vote, I can't help not to think about some of the posts that these social media companies are getting away with, particularly when we have kids in our cities that are being victimized by behavior that is so criminal, and social media companies are not being held accountable for it. And I think that's not right. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I really appreciate everyone's input into this, because what happens at the league is on the morning that they have the General Assembly and everyone votes, this resolution will be discussed, and people will have a chance to contribute to the discussion, and I'll have even more of a chance being on the resolutions committee itself to look at this, and I too have the mixed feelings that have been expressed here. I mean, none of us want criminal activity to be allowed to occur. And I think all of us know examples of what we would consider irresponsibility, that a social media platform allowed something on their platform that led to a serious crime. But as I say, the devil is in the details. And I don't know that the details are going to be in whatever action Congress takes on this rule. And so all of this might be helpful in at least adding to the discussion. I will certainly follow, it sounds like, the direction of council to vote against this resolution when it comes before the General Assembly. But I think even it's very helpful what I've heard from you all tonight, and focusing my thinking on the issue before the meeting, so that I can voice these, some of these thoughts there at the league. I don't know that the league is in really reading this. What they have given us in the packet. If you look at the end, the league poses questions to consider. And, at the end of the day, that these questions should be considered in assessing this. What would this resolution's impact be on free speech and government censorship? What are the expectations for cities when they receive information from a social media platform about a potentially credible threat in their respective communities? Does a city become liable for having information from a social media platform and the threat occurs? What would the cost to develop and maintain new data governance policies, including data infrastructure to store this information? So, what is the role of the league in engaging in issues relating to someone's privacy? It's a difficult issue. It should be looked at very carefully by the federal government that is, in charge of making or amending this rule. And I would hope some action. I mean, actually, I think the point Councilmember Lamnon made earlier about sometimes, and even in your story, Councilmember Salinas, that having this evidence on social media can be helpful in prosecuting crimes. And police, certainly are free to them. And, we know that police monitor social media and are able to sometimes circumvent things due to knowing that something's going to happen or seeing that on social media. So this was brought forward. The basis was looting in the period following George Floyd's murder. And so, they had these looting parties apparently organized. I think it really primarily came from the city of Cerritos. And I'm not sure where that is. That's not El Cerrito, the one we're familiar with. I'm pretty sure it's a city in Southern California. And, I can understand their anger at having, their malls looted. And that having been organized but on social media. But there are significant issues of individual rights, freedom of speech involved here. So with that, I will, and I think Councilmember Wahab wants another word here.
Yeah, I just want to touch base. Has our city attorney been able to log on?
I think, Miriam, if you elevate him to a speaker, he's attending. He's an attendee right now, so maybe if you can just elevate him and allow him to speak.
Yes, Kelly.
Okay, Michael, go ahead.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. The question that's being presented isn't new because freedom of speech isn't free. We're all familiar with the term, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, which comes from a U.S. Supreme Court case that's about 100 years old now. So what's being presented tonight really isn't so much of a legal issue as it is a policy or political consideration. And in that regard, Congress frequently balances what we consider to be the rights of absolute free speech versus potential damage or impact on the community. And that's what's being presented, in this form of resolution. So without trying to comment on the merit of it, it is not unusual that speech is infringed upon for a variety of public policy reasons. So, it's not illegal or unconstitutional for the federal government to restrict speech. But, as the commenters have said tonight, it's tough when you start imposing what amounts to forms of censorship. And so, I'll just leave it at that. The council has to balance the interests in deciding whether or not to support the proposed resolution. And that's it.
Right.
Thank you. I personally just want to state that I do believe that ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, is opposed to this and has been for some time, because this has been brought up a number of times, as mentioned. And I do want to share that, I am an individual that has traveled to different countries, and I will say a country like Afghanistan that imposes significant censorship to the public and the freedom of speech on a variety of claims of trying to prevent, terrorism, preventing a lot of different other crimes. If you are to go on the internet in Afghanistan, almost everything is censored, even regular news updates regarding crimes and many other things. It's incredibly disgusting to see. And as mentioned before, I do understand the spirit of which this kind of moves forward, but I will also quote Voltaire when loosely translated, I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And I think that that's what I'm looking at. So I appreciate the comments tonight. Thank you.
All right. So with that, Madam City Clerk, we have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Wahab, seconded by Councilmember Lamnin, to direct me to oppose this league resolution at the League of California Cities General Assembly.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mendel.
Yes.
Councilmember Salinas.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Aye.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all. And really, thank you for all the comments, because I did listen and take notes and can share some of that with my colleagues at the League when we get there. So, and I will say, I will be attending. Those of us who we are all attending via Zoom this year. We are really not going anywhere, but our Zoom rooms. But so it will be a very different, actually, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the way it always is. And it won't be that way at all this time. It will be all online, but it should be an interesting discussion. So thank you all. And with that, we're going to move to our next item, which is item number 10. This involves a city attorney employment agreement extension, a 1-month extension, because as you know, we were delayed in our usual reviews of our council appointed officers this year. So we are not quite done with the city attorneys and need to extend. We'd already extended it to September 30th and we'll now be extending it to October 31st. And I'll turn this over to Assistant City Manager Hurtado to give whatever I didn't right there.
Wonderful staff presentation. Thank you, Mayor. Just like the Mayor said, this is a request for a 1-month extension through October 31st. You have done a 3-month extension, and because Council was unable to complete the review due to all of the reprioritization you had to do related to COVID, we were unable to get this on the agenda and complete it on time. However, the City Attorney's annual performance evaluation is scheduled to be completed on October 13th, and the next regularly scheduled council meeting to bring that to is on October 27th, at which time the council will consider a proposed successor employment agreement, which will be effective November 1st. So in the meantime, the proposed 1-month employment agreement extends the term through October 31st to allow council time to complete its review. And so I'll turn it back to you, Mayor, to see if you have any additional comments.
All right. No, just you finished it very well. And I hope, and unless anyone has any questions, I don't see any. So Madam City Clerk, are there any requests from the public to speak on this item?
So, Madam Mayor, no requests to speak at the moment. We do have attendees, but no one is raising their hand.
All right, so I'm going to close public comment. Once again, Councilmember Cermeño, you got to hit that hand raise button, which Councilmember Mendel did this time, and I will turn it over to him.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Okay, then I'm going to let Councilmember, since he seconded it. And are there any council comments? If not, Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mendel.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Salinas.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Yes.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
And the motion passes with 7 votes. So then we will move on to item number 11, which is regarding our city clerk. It is actually it is the extension of her contract to for the remainder of this fiscal year that we are now in, as we would have done earlier in the year had we been caught up. Now we have finished the city clerk's evaluation, so this will be a longer. This will be an extension all the way to, I believe, June 30th, and also somewhat modify the terms of her employment. So, Ms. Hurtado, can you add anything to that?
The only thing I'll add is just 3 quick main highlights of the modifications to the agreement. First, we took out outdated language on the city clerk's previous givebacks to the city from 2018 because they were no longer relevant. We also clarified some language in the agreement regarding leave cash out options so that they better align with the cash out terms for other appointed and executive employees. And then we added language that council would consider a salary adjustment for the city clerk potentially on January 1st in consideration of current organizational practices, meaning that you usually look at market-based salary adjustments based on market study and other factors. And if that were to occur, it would occur in January. And so those were just the 3 main modifications to the agreement, with the exception of it now being extended through June 30th of next year. And that concludes my staff report.
Right. And I would say other considerations this year certainly will include the city's financial status. So with that, are there any, Councilmember Marquez?
I'll wait until after public comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
To move item.
Okay. All right. I see. Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
And at this point, we have attendees, but no one is wishing to speak on the item. Mayor Halliday.
All right. So with that, I will entertain Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move the item and just want to give my sincere, I think I speak on behalf of the entire council. Our city clerk is amazing. She's taken on a lot of challenges this year. Don't know if she takes enough time off because she's always available, no matter what time you reach out to her. I just want to thank you and your team for all your great work and transitioning from Teams to Zoom and just making local government as accessible as possible during these challenging times. So thank you for stepping up, and you're definitely someone we could count on, and I appreciate all your dedication to the residents of Hayward. So I'm happy to move the item.
Is anyone happy to second it?
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Salinas, thank you. And is it appropriate for our city clerk to be calling the roll on this item?
We could have the deputy.
Yes. Yes, I'll ask our deputy to kindly assist with this, please. Thank you.
Okay. That'll work then. I don't know. I was going to ask the city attorney, but if there was any problem, but I think that is more appropriate. So Ms. Monlux, right? You're going to.
Yes, correct.
On this vote.
Councilmember Landon.
Aye to both the motion and the comments made by Councilmember Marquez. Thank you, Miriam.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mendel.
Yes.
Councilmember Salinas.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Zermeño.
Aye.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes.
Thank you.
That motion carries with 7 aye votes. And wow, that brings us to the end of our, legislative business agenda. And I will certainly echo those comments from Councilmember Marquez. Thank you for all of your service as Madam City Clerk. So we will now move on to City Manager comments.
And I do have a few comments this evening. I'm going to try and speak up, so hopefully you can hear me better now, closer to my mic. wanted to just share a little bit, some statistics from last week's food distribution event. We've been doing this free food distribution event weekly in partnership with the Alameda County Food Bank and a number of partners, I think since March, actually. And so last week, we actually distributed food to 1,493 families, which is remarkable and heartbreaking all at the same time. So we had at Chabot College, where we have the drive-through food distribution site, we served 779 families there. And then we had our street maintenance crews who were able to pick up additional food and deliver food to St. Clement's Church, which served 378 families, and Glad Tidings Church, which served an additional 336 families. And so there were some amazingly generous donations from Columbus Meats and the Siwa Foundation. Columbus Meats donated 2,386 pounds of salami and sausages. Siwa, and I think probably some other items as well. Siwa International donated 19,152 pounds of food, and the Alameda County Food Bank donated 29,770 pounds of food. And so that's, if you're adding quickly, that's over 51,000 pounds of food that was distributed and delivered. We served a total of 4,192 individuals. Of those adults 18 to 64, that was about 1,900. Children under 18, 1,232, and seniors 65 plus, it was about 1,044. So clearly still a dramatic need in our community. We are always looking for volunteers who would like to help out at the food distribution site. You can contact the city manager's office or Zach Abadi if anyone knows him, and but you can also volunteer through the city's website. We still have our volunteer portal up, so we are always welcoming volunteers. I did want to highlight that today the the state actually, has moved into this new tiered system for identifying what the prevalence of COVID is, the infection rates, and new cases. And this is on their blueprint to a recovered economy. And so the state has moved Alameda County into the red tier from the purple tier. So the purple tier is the worst. The red tier is the next one down, which means that some businesses can now open, and there is an ability for schools to apply and begin modified in-person classes. What the county has said, though, with their movement to the red tier is that they are not going to allow opening of any new businesses for 2 weeks. They're going to monitor for the next 2 weeks, and then they're going to work to figure out what additional businesses might be allowed to open, and then also work with the school districts and the county superintendent of schools on school reopening activities. So just wanted to share that. And then lastly, another amazing, oh, my screen froze, sorry about that. Another amazing volunteer partnership, and through our Hayward Public Library, we were able to, through the family education program and partnership with Hayward Unified School District and community partners, we were able to distribute over 1,500 school supply bags to Hayward Unified students, as well as 200 census bags loaded with books. And so the school supplies included folders, paper, pencils, eraser, calculator, kind of all the necessities for back to school. And this was through our partnership with the Hayward Promise Neighborhoods. And it was every child attending Roos Elementary, Tyrell Elementary, and Glassbrook Elementary School received the supply bags. That's over 1,500 students. So I want to thank the library staff for putting those together in partnership with HUSD. So those were my comments this evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Council reports, announcements. Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind the public that this Saturday, at 10 a.m. that there will be a Hayward Census Canvas Walk. The Alameda County Census team basically needs a little bit more help counting individuals in Hayward. It is incredibly important that all members be counted regardless of status. And the reason for that is because funding to our local area is determined by our census count. So if we would like more social services or anything like that to be provided to the public, our census does matter. I hope you guys all at least try to volunteer. If not, definitely tell your friends and neighbors to fill out their census report. And I have posted on social media as well. The gathering will happen in front of Glad Tidings at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, let's get that count up to 100%. Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Wahab, for making that announcement. We did get that email, so it's important for the public. If you haven't already done so, please fill out your census. Also wanted to share, I believe it was the mayor was also on a call last week with Kaiser Permanente. They were giving us updates. They're just stressing the importance of everyone to get a flu shot this season, especially because of COVID. We want to make sure that people are clear on their diagnosis. The main goal is to not impact our hospitals. It really needs to be hospital beds need to be preserved for people that have a valid reason to be hospitalized, and you could prevent some of the spread and illness if you further protect yourself by getting a flu shot. So we just want to urge people to do that if they feel comfortable. Also remind people to still wear a facial mask properly in public. Make sure you cover your mouth, your nose, make sure that it's secured. Wash your hands frequently for at least 20 seconds. And I know we always use the term social distancing, but it should really just be physical distancing. If you have to go out in public, do your best to stay 6 feet away from other individuals. So hope everyone is staying safe, and just thank my colleagues and staff. It was a productive meeting. We covered a lot of ground, and I believe we're adding a meeting next week. Is that correct, City Manager?
Next Saturday.
Correct, on September 29th.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll be back next Tuesday as well. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right. Thank you for all those announcements. And tonight we're going to adjourn in memory of a man named Rich Essie. And if you didn't know him, if you've ever gone to the Zucchini Festival for the past 37 years in Hayward, he is the guy who has been organizing it all of that time, since its inception, I guess. And I think this is probably the first time in those 37 years that it didn't happen. It wouldn't have happened anyway. I mean, obviously because of COVID. So, but I think most of the council members probably did know Rich to some extent. And, you know, he, in addition to really being the one who headed up and organized the Zucchini Festival for 37 years, he was a respected member of the Hayward Lions Club and was also a veteran of the Vietnam War with the U.S. Air Force. So, you know, I know that he will be missed, and certainly the Zucchini Festival, we'll see what the future, there might not be a future of the Zucchini Festival either, but did you want to say something, Mark?
Yes, if go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'd like to...
I was kind of finished about him, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I've known you know, Rich Essie for many years. You know, when I was in high school, I used to you know, go to the Zucchini Festival. But when I graduated from high school, he you know, he was with the Zucchini Festival, and you know, I participated on the advisory board, and I mean, just, you know, he was quite a guy, and his, you know, I think the one memory was, you know, he kept the Zucchini Festival, you know, every year, he kept it going, caused a lot of heartburn around the community sometimes, but that was Rich, you know, Rich, you know, Rich would get it done. any way, any budget. Didn't matter how much money he had or how much money he didn't have in the budget. He found a way to get the Zucchini Festival, implemented and launched. And and I'll tell you, there were moments there was moments when I'll tell you that the Zucchini Festival had a very difficult time cobbling together a budget to get it off the ground. And even in those, dog years of the budget, he still did it. And I think, for such a long time, everybody just expected that the Zucchini Festival will be there on the third weekend of August. And so anyways, great guy, big heart, committed to Hayward. And just when I heard the news, it just broke my heart, but he will certainly be missed. God bless him.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, last year, for the first time, it could not be at Kennedy Park because they were, redoing the park. And so it was on the parking lot at Southland, which was just not nearly as, not to diss Southland, but, the parking lots are just not the most ideal place to do something like that. So that probably broke his heart a little bit too. But anyway, we will miss him. And also tonight, I must also adjourn this meeting in honor of someone who was not from Hayward, but was an important figure in our nation. And I know that we're all mourning her loss. And that, of course, is Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. As a woman, I have to say, I really wonder if I would be sitting here as mayor of the city tonight if it weren't for some of the work that she accomplished way back in the 1960s and 70s as a lawyer before her time on the Supreme Court. She has made an enormous contribution to this country in many ways, but especially in connection with the rights of women. And so it has been a sad week for our country. So tonight, in honor with as far as Mr. Essie goes, I would ask the staff to work with his family to perhaps dedicate a tree somewhere in the city at some point when we can do that in his memory. And perhaps we can also find a way in the coming months to do something in the city to recognize and honor Justice Ginsburg. So in honor and memory of Richard W. Essie, S.I., is that how you said it, council member? Okay, S.I. And Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Oh, I'm sorry, we're adjourned. Didn't see, but.
No worries. I'll shoot the request to the city manager, but is there any way we can get our local post office named after our Supreme Court?
Well, that's a good idea. There might be others ideas, but that's a good suggestion. So
I think that, that's something that would probably go through Congressman Swallow's office because we don't really have.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Good night, everyone.